just leave us alone?
Yeah.
I stood for 10.5 hours on the Senate floor for your right to be left alone. I frankly don't think that I want President Obama collecting my phone records or my gun records or any kind of my records. I don't think there's any reason why we should give up on our privacy or give up on our ability and right really to be left alone. And yet so many have just sort of said, oh, well, we have to do this. We have to give up on our liberty to find security. But Ben Franklin said the opposite. Franklin said that those who give up their liberty for security may wind up with neither. And that's what I'm afraid of. I'm afraid of a government that knows everything about us, that follows us from cradle to grave, always telling us what to do. Not only is it an invasion of our privacy, it ultimately becomes this in-between, this getting involved in every transaction, in every business, and everything we do, such that it's going to destroy what made this country great. People often say, America's great, or America's exceptional. Sure we are. We have to understand how we got to be great, how we got to be exceptional. It's because of the economic system. It's an economic system that leaves you alone, lets you sell things to others who voluntarily want to buy your stuff. And as a consequence, we've become the richest country in probably the history of the world. But not only are we the richest country, we're the most humanitarian country. In 2014, private individuals gave away $386 billion. So we're an incredibly generous country also. But we're giving away wealth voluntarily that was created by an economic system. If we don't know where the wealth came from, if we destroy the very system that creates the wealth, who's going to be the leader of the world? Who's going to be helping the world if we have no more prosperity in our country? Look at what they're doing to the coal industry. Look what they're doing to Wyoming. The same thing they're doing to Kentucky. We've lost 7,000 jobs because of President Obama's policy. And, you know, he's fond of saying that there ought to be balance, because I think he poll-tested that word. But the truth is, there ought to be some balance between the environment and the economy, between the environment and jobs. And I don't think he's had any balance at all. And you know, we've gotten most of these new regulations. We didn't pass any of them. That's a sad thing. It's one of the things I discovered in Washington that probably upsets me more than anything else, is that Congress is almost powerless to stop this. We've let so much power gravitate to the presidency that that's the real problem. These regulations that are so expensive, the most expensive thing that will ever occur or has occurred in our history, we don't get to vote on it. So when people ask me, what's the worst thing about President Obama? I say, how long do you have? Right? But it's not Obamacare. Obamacare is terrible. We ought to repeal the whole darn thing.
That's right.
Absolutely. But the thing is, it's not just Obamacare. It's not just the banking regulations. It's not just the regulations on the coal industry. What he's doing to this country, if you want to sum it all up, it's the collapse of the separation of powers. Our founding fathers gave us co-equal branches of government. Madison said that he wanted to pit ambition against ambition. The ambition of Congress to want to gain more power against the ambition of the president to want to gain more power, and that they would check and balance each other. It would be sort of an equilibrium. Well, the scales have tilted. The presidency has become almost imperial. You remember what the president said when he got frustrated when we took over Congress? He said he had his pen and his phone, and he'd, by golly, do whatever he wanted. That doesn't sound like a president to me. That sounds like a third world autocrat.
Yeah.
So we've got to stand up and say enough's enough, that we are going to enforce the Constitution, and these are powers that belong to Congress or to the people. But we're not going to let it happen. The problem is it's occurring over and over and over again. There was a philosopher that gave advice to our founding fathers, or our founding fathers looked to, by the name of Montesquieu. And Montesquieu said that when the executive begins to legislate, that a form of tyranny will ensue. That's what's happening now. We're getting to the point where the president has become so powerful. I'm running for the presidency because I want to do the opposite. I want to take power away from the presidency and give it back to the states and to the people. What makes me different than the other 55 people running for president. Everybody will come, if they get here, everybody will come to Wyoming, they'll say they're for a balanced budget amendment. They're for balancing the budget. But not only am I for the amendment, I'm actually for introducing a budget that balances. I've introduced 3 different budgets, and I made them vote on my budget. My budget would balance over a 5-year period, and you know how many Republicans voted for it? About a third. That's your problem. We keep electing some Republicans who say they're conservative, and they don't turn out to be very conservative. This is an ongoing problem. In fact, it's why I ran for office. I was a physician in a small town in Bowling Green, Kentucky, coaching Little League, enjoying my life. But I kept seeing we elect Republicans, and I'd help to elect them, and then all of a sudden they'd get up there and do the opposite. We had a Republican administration that doubled the amount of debt in our country, doubled the size of the Department of Education. I'm a Republican from way back. I still remember Reagan saying, get rid of it, and I still think we should get rid of the Department of Education. But some say, well, how would you balance a budget? What are you going to cut? Haven't we cut everything to the bone? Isn't it so terrible? We've cut so much. It's like we haven't even started. You've heard of this thing they call the sequester? Everybody's like, oh my goodness, sequester is so draconian. The sequester is a cut in the rate of increase in spending. It doesn't even cut spending, and it never balances the budget. But many people have gotten together and said, oh, we have to get rid of it. Many so-called conservative Republicans got together with the liberal Democrats and said, oh, we need to spend more on the military. And the Democrats said we need more on welfare. So what was the unholy alliance? They got together and raised both. And the deficits go up. But you know what? We can't be a strong country. We can't defend ourselves. We're not going to project power from bankruptcy court. So you say, where would we cut spending? You know what we ought to start with? Why don't we not give any money to our enemies?
Yeah.
Why don't we not give money or arms to countries that burn our flag and chant death to America? Why don't we give no money, absolutely no money, to countries that persecute Christians? And you say to yourself, well, everybody must believe that, right? That's nothing new. Do we really give money to countries that hate us?
Absolutely,
yes. Do we give money to countries that persecute Christians? Yes. So I introduced an amendment in the Foreign Relations Committee about 6 months ago. And my amendment said this: no money to any country that persecutes Christians. And how did I define it? I defined it as any country that puts to death or has life imprisonment for someone who criticizes the state religion. We all know what the state religion I'm talking about. It's Islam. In many Islamic countries, if not most of them, if you criticize the state religion, they call it blasphemy, and you can be put to death. I don't want any of my money going to those countries.
Nope.
Right.
I also said any country that puts people to death or life imprisonment for interfaith marriage, or any country that says if you convert, and conversion is typically from the state religion to Christianity, that can be the death penalty. Why would you give any of our money to that? If you ask anybody in Wyoming, I'll bet you 99% of the people in Wyoming, Republican or Democrat, y'all do have a few Democrats, right? Republican or Democrat, I'll bet you nobody in Wyoming is for sending money to these countries.
Right.
So I forced the vote. You know what the vote was? 18-2 to continue sending your money to these countries. Every Democrat and almost every Republican, me and one other Republican, were the only ones that voted to say this should end. I had another amendment. This made it to the Senate floor, and I said, let's quit sending arms to the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt.
Right on.
Yeah.
But here's the sad thing. Only a third of the Republicans voted with me. No Democrats voted with me. But 2/3 of the Republicans voted to continue sending your money. You know what they say? They say that's how we project power. And that's how we're giving money to the moderates in that country. And I say, find them and introduce me to them.
Yeah.
It's just like in Syria. In Syria, in the Civil War a year ago, they asked me to send arms to the Syrian Islamic rebels. And I said, are you crazy? I said, do you think any of these people really like America? Do you think any of them would recognize Israel? I say, call me when you find the group of these Islamic rebels that will recognize Israel. In fact, it's the opposite. Some of the weapons we gave, the people said, they got the weapons, they said, yeah, when we're done fighting Assad, we're going to fight Israel. And it's like, this is who we're giving weapons to?
Yeah.
I said this in the presidential debate. You want to defeat ISIS? Let's quit arming them.
Yeah.
Right?
When the vote came to give weapons to these Islamic rebels in Syria, I said, how do you know they're moderate? Do you speak Arabic, and can you trust them if you do speak Arabic? One CIA analyst said this about him. He said the only moderates, or the only thing moderate about these rebels is their ability to fight. So the weapons we gave them got snatched up by other people. Our ambassador, our former ambassador to Syria, was there to testify, and he said it's inevitable that the weapons you're giving to these Islamic rebels, that they will fight alongside Al-Qaeda. And it's like, I thought Al-Qaeda was the enemy. I thought that's who attacked us on 9/11. We're now giving weapons to people that are fighting with the people who attacked us on 9/11. Who dreamt up this idiotic proposal?
Yeah.
So this goes on and on. And as we funneled arms into these Islamic rebels, who are they fighting? Assad, a dictator. Who's in the middle? About 2 million Christians. How long have they been there? A long time. Sometimes since the time of Jesus. I had a guy in my medical school class who was a Syrian, his parents had been Syrian Christians, and I said, first time I met him, this was a stupid question, but I said, how long has your family been Christian? I thought maybe they were converts, and he said, heck of a lot longer than your family. Which is kind of true if you think about it. A lot of us came from Northern European stock, people in Europe, and that was who our ancestors were. Many of them didn't become Christians until maybe 600 AD or 800 AD or 1000 AD. But the Syrian Christians, many of them converted in the very beginning. When Jesus was alive and on earth, that's when they became Christians. They're caught in the middle between ISIS and Assad. We were funneling arms to the allies of ISIS, pushing back Assad, and ISIS grew while we were funneling arms to the Islamic rebels to fight against Assad. But if you ask the Syrian Christians, if you ask them in Syria, who do they want, who would they take, if their choices are Assad or ISIS, every one of them will tell you Assad. Is he a terrible guy? Should we help him? No. Should we topple him? No. He protects the Christians over there and has for decades. He's no great diplomat. He's no great Jeffersonian Democrat. We wouldn't vote for him. We don't like him. We shouldn't arm him. But we shouldn't topple him either, because the Christians are caught up in the middle of this.
Right.
There was a young man by the name of Zarkis el-Zakam, and he was a Christian, spoke Aramaic, the same language that Jesus spoke. And he was in a little small village called Malula. And as the Islamic rebels came in, who knows who they were, who knows who armed them, as they came in, he stood up and he said, I'm a Christian, and if you must kill me, do it. And those were his last words. There are Christian martyrs in the Middle East, but if you want to help them, it's not as simple as, let's go to war. The problem is we have to figure out which side of the war we're on first. We have to figure out whether what we're doing is helping or hurting. When I voted against arming the Islamic rebels, I said the great irony is you'll be back in a year to fight against your own weapons. Sure enough, ISIS rides around in $1 billion worth of U.S. Humvees. They have $1 billion of cash. They pay their soldiers in U.S. dollars that they confiscated. They have anti-tank weapons that they took from people that we gave to, or maybe inadvertently we gave to them. This is insane. The so-called moderates that we've been arming, we decided we'd train them over the last year. So President Obama's been training them. He's got $500 million from Congress to train these Islamic rebels. He's trained 60 of them for $250 million. $4 million a fighter.
Jeez.
$4 million per fighter. And so you know what some genius did the other day? He told 5 of them, you're ready to go back into war. Who sends 5 people at a time to war? They were captured in 10 minutes by al-Nusra. Who's al-Nusra? One of our allies over there. Who are they also allied with? Al-Qaeda. The whole place is a mess. We've got to think about what we're doing before we get involved.
We didn't make it better.
The only people over there that are probably fighting and will fight to the death and are our friends are the Kurds. So what do? We don't give the Kurds anything. We give all the weapons to the Shiites in Baghdad. Who are the Shiites aligned with? Iran. So we say Iran's a problem on the one hand, but we're now funneling arms to the ally of Iran, which is the Baghdad government. So we have to think before we act. I will do whatever it takes to defend our country. I believe in peace through strength. I'm a Reagan conservative. I was there in 1976 in Kansas City as a kid, where our family was there to support Reagan against the establishment. So we are Reagan conservatives through and through. But even Reagan gets misconstrued on this. Some say Reagan was just nothing against cowboys, we're in Wyoming. They say he was just a cowboy, he was reckless. The truth of the matter is much different than that. He actually negotiated with the Russians, but from a position of strength. He built up our defenses. He wasn't going to take any guff from anybody in the world, but he didn't get us involved in every civil war around the world as well. Because sometimes both people are bad in a war. And sometimes getting involved in toppling a dictator doesn't make it more safe. Hillary was a big promoter of this as well. Hillary promoted the war in Libya. We toppled Gaddafi, what did we get? Chaos, our ambassador assassinated, and the rise of radical Islam. But I think of all the scandals that President Obama has brought us, I think of the old sort of nursery rhymes. Here a scandal, there a scandal, everywhere a scandal. But of all the scandals, the one that probably bothers me most is Benghazi.
Yeah.
Because here you have, and it's not the spin, it's not the talking points, it's not they tried to deceive us by saying it was about a movie. The real scandal is that for 9 months, our people over there requested more security. But what did she do? Hillary Clinton, in her political correctness, she said, well, we don't want to show our guns because, you know, guns are bad, and so we don't want our soldiers to walk around with guns because it'll also offend the freedom fighters over there. Well, the people they call freedom fighters, one, are members of Al-Qaeda or associates of Al-Qaeda or radical jihadists. That's who the people were that toppled Gaddafi. Was Gaddafi any better? No. We got toppled by people who are radical Islamists who hate us even more, and we're more at risk to have them attack us now from Libya. But in Benghazi, she kept sending people home. Special Forces team, 6 guys sent home in March. Another 6 guys sent home in April. The team there requested a plane so they could fly around the country if they needed to or flee if they had to. It was denied by Hillary Clinton. At every step, she's denying and bringing home the security all spring before the ambassador is killed. But you know what she had enough money for that spring? They spent $100,000 on a charging station, electrical charging station, so they could green up the embassy in Vienna. It seems the ambassador had 24 Chevy Volts. He was trying to brag about, you know, we're so green, we're as green as the socialists in Western Europe. But they didn't know that you had to have a special plug. So they ordered $100,000. They spent $100,000 on a plug, but we didn't have enough money for a plane to fly people around in case of an emergency. When the emergency came, you know what plane we had to beg for? A Libyan plane. Of course, it was an American plane that we'd probably given to Libya, but we had to beg them for permission to use the plane to try to send people to Benghazi to help. This goes on all summer before the ambassador is killed. That summer, though, what was Hillary Clinton's State Department spending money on? They spent $650,000 on Facebook ads to get friends for the State Department Facebook.
Wow.
They spent $700,000 on landscaping for the Brussels embassy. Then they spent $5 million on crystal glassware and barware for the embassies. So they're just spending money like out of control, and yet they don't have any money that they're going to spend on security. So it gets to August. The ambassador's killed in September. In August, Colonel Wood, you may have seen him interviewed on TV, he said that he was told not to wear his military boots, and his soldiers were not to wear their military boots because that was offensive to the freedom fighters, the local freedom fighters in Libya. But then he was told to go home. Even though he said, you are in danger of being overrun. They have shot at the British ambassador. Britain has pulled out of Benghazi. And so what did we do? We sent the last remaining security force home. Do you know who was defending the embassy the night it was attacked? The February 17th Brigade, some Islamic group that they said, oh, they're going to protect our embassy. Really? So when Hillary Clinton came before my committee, I asked her a question. I said, Hillary Clinton, did you read the cables begging for help? did you read these cables and why didn't you respond? Why did you continue to pull the security out? And she acted all huffy. She said, she acted as if that was somebody else's job, somebody beneath her to read those cables. And you know what I think? I think by her dereliction of duty, by her not providing adequate security in Benghazi, it should forever preclude her from holding higher office. We have to decide how we're going to win. Congressman Labrador and Congressman Lummis mentioned some of this. Wyoming's kind of easy. Y'all are great. Y'all are going to vote for the Republican nominee.
Yeah.
But that's the end of the story. The beginning of the story is who the nominee is. We need a nominee who can actually win in states that aren't the red states. And as we make this decision, we have to decide as a party, how are we going to grow into the states that are not red, make them red, and take this country back? Some of the powers that be, and you'll see them on TV, they'll say, well, we just need to dilute what we stand for. We need to be more like Democrats. We need to be Democrat light, and that's how we're going to win again. I couldn't disagree more.
Absolutely.
I say hogwash. In fact, I think we need to be more boldly for what we are for. We need to be the party that really is for cutting taxes again. We have not had a nominee since Reagan who actually was really for cutting taxes. Most of them are like, oh, I'm for revenue neutral tax reform. What does that mean? That means half of you will pay more, half of you will pay less, and the net effect will be zero. I tell people, if that's what we're for, I'm going home. I didn't take this time away from my family to go to Washington and try to fix things because we're for nothing. We're for revenue neutral tax reform. Nobody's going to knock on a door because you say, hi, my candidate's for revenue neutral tax reform. Let's be bold. I say get rid of the entire tax code and replace it with one single rate.
Yep.
Yeah.
We can take the concept of returning money to the people, also to people who haven't been hearing us. I've taken that message to the south side of Chicago. I was there a month ago. African-American leader in the community, minister of a large church. He's changed his registration to being a Republican now. We can win these states not by giving up on what we believe in, but being more boldly for what we are for. We need to become the party of the entire Bill of Rights. We're pretty good on the Second Amendment. And I tell people, if you don't believe I'm for the Second Amendment, come to my house unannounced. But if you want to keep the Second Amendment, you got to defend it by believing in the Fourth Amendment. You can't let the government come into your house without a warrant with your name on it.
That's right.
If you believe in the Second Amendment.
Yep.
Because the first thing that they will come for will be your guns.
Yeah.
On the Republican stage, I'm the only one that opposed the president's collection of all your phone records. It's been declared illegal by the courts. It's thought to be unconstitutional by most of us who believe in the Constitution. And yet, you know what one of your candidates said? We won't name any names, a former governor from Florida. You know what he said? He said the thing he likes most about President Obama is the collection of all your phone records and him continuing.
Huh.
Even though the Congress has told him not to collect your records, do you know what's happening? Your records are still being collected and sent to Utah as we speak. He's continuing to sue to continue to do what Congress told him not to do. So this is a lawless administration, and we have to stop it. But if you say, well, I'm fine, I don't have anything to hide, so I don't have anything to fear, and you say, well, I don't care, you know, I'm not a minority, why do I care about minority rights or who might be abused by this? You know what, you can be a minority because of the color of your skin or the shade of your ideology. You can be a minority because you're an evangelical Christian. You can be a minority because you're a constitutionalist.
Yeah.
You can be a minority because you believe life begins at the very beginning. So there's all kinds of reasons why you want to protect your rights. You want to make sure that we are not having the government sift through all of our records. What if they decided that because you're pro-life, they want to know who you are to follow you? Do you want them to know that you belong to a pro-life organization and to look through the pro-life organization's records? Or that you own a gun, or that you don't own a gun? Both of them could be problems. So the thing is, you don't want the government to look through your records. And people say, well, how are we going to catch terrorists? How are we going to stop the people who want to attack us? With the Constitution. The same way we stop rapists and murderers every night. If there is a potential rapist in their house or a murderer, and someone said they've gone in the house 2 hours earlier, the police in Cheyenne obey the Fourth Amendment. They show up on the curb. If it's 3 in the morning, they call a judge. What does the judge say? You have permission, but it's a check and a balance. As much as I'm for privacy, if you call me at 3 in the morning and say, somebody that arrived here last week from Pakistan is calling somebody else in Syria, and we think they're about to obtain weapons, I say, yes, look at their records. But I don't want to look at all of your records because, one, it overwhelms us with records, and two, it violates everything we're trying to defend.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
But I think if we become the party that defends the Second Amendment, the Fourth Amendment, the First Amendment, if you don't have religious liberty, you don't have any liberty at all. So we have to be able to defend the right to be left alone in our churches. People say, oh, well, you must be doing something wrong if you don't want your records looked at. Maybe you're doing something right, and you don't want people looking at your records. The Fifth and Sixth Amendment are about justice. The Fifth Amendment says the government can't take your property. They can't take your property without just compensation. This is a big deal. Most people in the West strongly believe in property rights. But the Supreme Court got it wrong. About 10 years ago in the Kelo decision, they said, we can take private property from you and give it to a retailer because they're going to pay more in taxes. In fact, municipalities in California, there's a lot of bad things happening in California, municipalities in California have tried to take churches because they say, well, the church doesn't pay any taxes, we need more revenue, so let's give the church property to a retailer because they'll pay more in taxes. That's not my understanding of property rights. My understanding of property rights is it's yours and the government is not allowed to take it from you.
Yeah.
You think everybody would get that? Well, we have a candidate right now leading in the polls on the Republican side who actually grew rich using eminent domain to take people's property. He said about the Kelo decision, I 100% agree with it. So Vera Koking had lived for 30 years, and then Donald Trump bought and put a casino next to her house. Imagine that. But he wasn't done there. He wanted her house, and she wouldn't sell. So he went to the government, whom he purchased, because he says, I buy politicians so they'll do what I tell them to do. This is the problem. He's part of the problem. How could we possibly consider this? He took her house, kicked her out, and he made a parking lot out of her house. That should not happen in America. Your private property should be respected. The Sixth Amendment says you have a right to a trial by jury. You say, well, who could be opposed to that? Certainly no one's trying to take away my right to a trial by jury. Part of it's already been taken from you. In 2011, Congress passed a bill that says that you can be indefinitely detained without a lawyer, without a charge, forever.
Wow.
And so I had the debate. I'm having this debate with one of the senators, a Republican senator. Won't name any names, but he was from Arizona. So we're having this debate. We're going back and forth. And I finally said, do you mean that an American citizen could be sent to Guantanamo Bay without a trial, without a lawyer? And he said, yeah, if they're dangerous. I said, it sort of begs the question, doesn't it? Who gets to decide who's dangerous and who's not?
Right.
In fact, before you start thinking, oh, well, this is just for terrorists, here's a description of some of the people who might be terrorists. This is put out by the Department of Justice, and if your neighbor is one of these people, you're supposed to report them. If you see something suspicious, this is the government telling you report your neighbor. People who are missing fingers. Have you ever known a farmer that was not a terrorist that was missing fingers? Right? Likes to pay in cash. My goodness, we're going to put the whole country in jail. Has stains on their clothing. Could be a messy coffee drinker. Could be bouncing on the way to the airport. That is a characteristic your government says is suspicious and you should report. Has multiple guns in the house. I'm not going to ask for a show of hands. But if characteristics would you not want your day in court?
Yes.
The last was my favorite. Has changed the color of their hair recently.
Uh-oh.
I'm not going to ask for a show of hands on that one either. But the thing is if these ridiculous characteristics are what we're supposed to report, and if these are the characteristics of possible terrorists, they also set up these things called fusion centers. And in Missouri, one of the characteristics was having pro-life stickers, pro-Constitution stickers on your car. They were subject to being pulled over as someone who might be a threat to the country. My goodness, if that's what's going on, we are in great danger. When we passed this legislation allowing an American citizen to be detained without a trial, the first thought to my mind came as of, do you remember Richard Jewell? He was this guy, everybody said he was the Olympic bomber. Remember the Centennial bombing? They said he had to do it. He fit the profile. He had glasses. I see a few of you out there. He was an introvert, and he wore a backpack, and he was also helpful to the victims. I don't know why that makes you a potential bomber, but it turns out he wasn't the guy who did it. The media all said he did it, and then they had to pay millions of dollars for this false accusation. They ruined his life in about an hour. But the reason why we have a right to a trial by jury, the reason why we presume that you're innocent until proven guilty, is there have been times in our history when we got it wrong. Imagine if Richard Jewell had been a black man in the South in 1920. He might not have lived the rest of the day. The protection, the presumption of innocence is one of the most important things we have in our country. And when I think of people saying, but we have to stop terrorists, I think of, well, gosh, I know a young man who fought in the war against terrorists. He lost both legs and an arm. And you ask him what he fought for, he said the Bill of Rights, the Constitution. Wouldn't it be sad if while he gave up so much, we just sort of blithely gave up the freedom he was fighting for?
Yep.
We can't do that. That's not who we are. And do you know what I think? I think if we become the party that defends the Sixth Amendment with the same fervor that we defend the Second Amendment, we're going to be a party that grows so large, a party that is a party of minority rights, a party that says no matter who you are in our country, we're going to treat you with equal protection. We're going to be a party that grows so big and so fast that rocks and rolls its way to victory. That's the party I want to be part of, and I hope you do too. Thank you.